Bruce was very visible in the 60s and 70s, and then sort of slightly less visible in the later period. So I was wondering how the two of you sort of came across him and decided that you wanted to make a film about him. Nick, you start.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Okay. I saw Bruce years ago in a film called Smashing Time. I think I saw it here, where he has a lot of robots and assemblages are in the film. It's a swinging 60s film, and always remembered it. Always talked to Jeremy about it. When Jeremy bumped into Bruce one day.
Bruce had a show in Norwich, which I went to, in the Art Centre, wasn't it? And
yes, a little mini retrospective to celebrate my 80th birthday.
And I went round the show and I just thought, this is amazing. Someone's done all this incredible work and isn't better known and should be better known and more celebrated. And Bruce was there and I had a chat with him and I ended up buying a photograph from him. So I went to the house.
And I didn't know who the hell this guy was.
Still, that's fine. Yeah. And then I just thought, well, I'd love to do something with him, do a show or a film or something, because it's such an amazing story and an amazing artist.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that really comes across in the film is Bruce's sort of almost anti-patriotic sort of, criticism of culture coming down from above. And there's a nice timing in a way that this season and the art show is coinciding with the Olympics and the Jubilee before. And I just wondered, obviously the Folk Archive project, which Jeremy, you did with Alan Kane, who's here this evening, was partly a response to the Millennium Dome. So I was just wondering, is this a coincidence, or that you're celebrating an artist who's, looking at a different type of England? Bruce isn't.
It's a happy coincidence.
It's a happy coincidence.
It's great that it's going on during the Olympics. It's an antidote to all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great that Bruce is the kind of person who makes you proud to be English. And the Jubilee, it was all a bit over the top maybe, but it's just good. It's very good timing.
He's more English than the Queen, in a good way.
Well, that's true. And how's it been for you, Bruce, making this film and looking back over your life? I mean, there's so
yes.
many
Well, first thing I'd like to say is that I do really feel. My name Lacey, Lacey, but Lacey is a French name, means not. Lacey's came over with the Normans. They were the Norsemen. Normandy was a Viking settlement in France, and so I believe that I've got Viking blood in me, Now, when I left London, living in an old space factory in Hackney, I've been going to the fairs in East Anglia, and that time at Barsham in 1976, when I did a ritual to do with earth fertility, and I simulated a thunderstorm, 2 hours later, the 76 drought came to an end, and everybody accused me of doing weather magic and making it rain. But the next fair I went to, I took weather stations and things were being monitored, and I found I was going in harmony with what was happening in the natural sort of world. But as far as London was concerned, in moving to Norfolk, I disappeared from the cultural map, Although I went to art school, I hated art school. I was persecuted. It took me 10 years to get over art school. It's like soldiers suffering from shell shock, But I carried on, and one thing has happened all my life. I was a bank clerk at 17, chief ledger clerk, Barclays Bank. I wanted to be a Fleet Air Arm pilot. So I changed and I went into the Navy, learnt to be electrical mechanic, which was useful for building robots later. But then I got TB and I had a metamorphosis. I had time to think about where my life was going. And I left hospital, went to art school, and when I came back from my traveling scholarship, I metamorphosized again and became a West End nightclub performer. And then I had big rows with people like Kenneth Williams about hiring props and doing all sorts of things. I hated actors and I hated show business. And I started making 2 robot actors. And then someone said, there's an art movement called assemblage. And so I metamorphosized again and produced all these love-hate objects. I'm like egg becomes a caterpillar, becomes a butterfly, becomes a chrysalis. No, chrysalis. But I keep going on metamorphosizing, and then going down to Cardiff with all my robots and machines on the old A4, I discover stone circles. I metamorphosize again. I start teaching myself dowsing. I go into ley lines and things, and then I find all sorts of coincidences. So I now believe in telepathy, and I believe in a sort of earth magic. Anyway.
It sounds like... No, it sounds like your artworks really address quite specific things in the moment you've been living through them. And I wondered, sort of looking back through the course of making this film, whether you thought a bit differently about any of your artwork, or the meaning had changed over the years.
So a too complicated question.
Okay. Has the meaning of some of your artwork changed over the years, do you think, by looking back at it?
Yes. You see, one thing I found, I had a son. My first wife was an accountant to someone who'd been to Highgate School, and she wanted her sons to go to Highgate School. My eldest son, John, went to Highgate School, English lesson, English teacher reads a poem. He goes around everyone in turn, what is your explanation? And they all give their different explanations, and he says, you're all wrong, because mine is the right explanation. And so even the poet would have a different explanation. So I found that when I do something, consciously thinking I'm knowing what I'm doing, 10 years later, I see other things that have come up from the subconscious, And one thing I've learned is that other people, their interpretation of my work is probably just as valid as mine is. Was that the question you asked?
We were very keen to show Bruce still, but you were still doing stuff, and to show you doing your performances and rituals.
You see, these guys, in the goodness of their heart, I'm a simple man. I have Otabix in the morning. I don't drink. I don't smoke. They sent us a food parcel from a northern equivalent of Fortnum and Mason or Sussex University.
Sussex University.
Brandy butter. We said we'd rather have had a tree. So about the time...
We'll send you a tree next time.
Yeah, I love noises. About the time was the Jubilee, and so we raffled this box of expensive food and gave it to the Salvation Army in Norwich Soup Kitchen. And I had a rubber head of the Queen, and so I raffled it. I said, rather a low voice because I have laryngitis, but my husband and I, brandy butter, it's much too expensive for us, so we want to give it to the poor in Norwich because we have a big house in Sandringham, Norfolk, and we do empathise with the poor in Norwich. Anyway, so that turned into a performance, you see. So performances are coming up my ears.
Do you feel, was it kind of like a collaborative effort in this way? Obviously you two worked before, and
yes.
How did you decide to sort of do certain sequences, and how did the film evolve?
We began, the film begins and ends with Bruce making art now, doing performances now, and so we just wanted to really track him and show him doing things now. That's what was most interesting to us. And then when we went to Duxford, of course, that was a setup.
Jeremy said, is there any special performance you can think of? So I went into my bed, and I went into a sort of a semi-sleepy state, which was like a meditation, in which I think things can flow. And I suddenly had this dream, this semi-dream. I have a big walnut tree in my orchard, of having ropes on pulleys pulling all my grandchildren up towards it. But then I transferred that into sending off my grandchildren, with High School Musical dolls, the small ones, sending off all their wishes and dreams. And we set them off in all directions. I've got grandchildren in Australia, in Spain, in Thailand, all over the world, boom. And so that was wishing ritual which came from instigated Jeremy saying, think of something, and then I daydreamed and thought of that. So I do seem to have the ability to dream up things, you know. Like when I started doing assemblage, everybody said, oh, Edward Kienholz, but I never heard of Edward Kienholz because I'd left the art world far behind. But I started doing things with all the junk I had, and I was inspired by other things. I seem to be able to have different things from different places. I'm like a beachcomber of the world, and I fuse them all together. The awful thing about art is that it's all growing out of itself, because art, I went to a lecture once, and they were saying, C was influenced by B, but it would have been better if he got, and B was influenced by A, but it'd been better if it got influenced by A and cut out B. And it's all incestuous, the art world. It's all growing out of itself, you know. And so I don't know whether I call myself an artist or not. I'm just a person that creates things. I wouldn't want to give myself a label, really.
So Bruce has a very rich history, and as you've covered a lot in the film, was there anything that you didn't put in that you wanted to? Or was there even something that you were really pleased was in there and you thought, oh, no one's probably seen this before?
I love putting in the ritual aspects towards the end, you know, Bruce doing these performances towards the end. But I mean, obviously, we've only covered a small part of Bruce's work. He's done it. We would have had to make an 8-hour movie. He's just done an extraordinary amount of a breadth of work.
It's an epic life and an epic career at the same time, so you can't have everything, unfortunately.
It's like an introduction to Bruce's work and world.
It's a really incredible film, I think.
In this film you've just seen, and also at the Camdens, it's only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that one hasn't even referred to, because there's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much, you know.
No, I know.
And in a way, that
Trust me.
you see, some artists, Victor Passmore, he is a Euston Road English impressionist. Suddenly, I don't know what happens, but he changes overnight, starts doing abstract pictures all with musical notes in. And most artists, they have an exhibition. They leave art school, they have an exhibition, they become successful, sell everything. And they carry on in that mold, they become fossilized. The money fossilizes them. But I've never done that. So Peter Cook said to me once, in that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, if you want to become famous, you do the same thing. So there's Peter Cook and Dudley Moore as these old tramps. And you keep having the catchphrases and you keep drumming in, and then you become well-known, you become famous, you know. So I've moved on from I've never stayed long enough doing one particular thing, you know. I had a talk at Norwich Art School once, an exhibition. And I said, it may seem conceited, but I see myself as the white horse leading the Lord Mayor's procession. And I am finding my own way, and people, if they want to, can follow. I am sitting on the way, which are my artworks, and the critics are coming along, picking up my shit and saying, oh, it's a fantastic texture. Oh, what a beautiful color. Because the thing about me, I'm not into aesthetics and things where you get a sculpture and they talk about it's not the sculpture, it's the space around it, and it's all crap for me, you know. I'm a simple person, you know. Anyway.